My guest is offering me a pack of Dunhill. I do appreciate it.
You want one?
We have a guest here in studio, and we're grateful that he's here. We found out that he's from all over, whether it's Milan to London to New York to LA, and he's got a film in what's called the Toronto Jewish Film Festival. And here he is, Jordan Stone. How you doing, Jordan?
Todd, I'm tired.
Are you?
But I am so happy to be here. It's an absolute pleasure. And I've been in Toronto literally 20 minutes. Daniela picked me up at the hotel. I'm here. I don't even know what time of day it is, but I am excited.
Tell us about the movie.
Okay. Well, here we go. I did
Great reviews, by the way, from what and people were really looking forward for it to being a part of the festival. I had to interrupt. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I really went out to try to do something different. And my subject matter were an old dear couple who I grew up with, Irwin Corey and Fran Corey. Irwin goes by the stage name as the Professor Irwin Corey and has been in show business since 1938. Wow. And Irwin is 100 years old and Fran is 95. And it's the kind of a family I grew up with. And so they were like my surrogate grandparents. And their house in New York is basically where all the action is. And so a lot of smoking going on and a lot of eating and a lot of drinking. And so a few years ago, a friend of mine I brought over to introduce, a film producer, I introduced her to them and she said, Jordan, you're crazy. You should make a movie about these people. And I was like, oh, they're old, they're friends. I don't want to intrude. And as we went to lunch, of course, my mind started thinking, I think she's absolutely right. So after lunch, went home, made some notes, went back downstairs and I said, listen, I'd like to come back in a couple of months. I want to sit down and make a film with you guys. And they said, okay. And it was like that.
That easy.
But it took a long time. The whole process of, professionally speaking, I've worked on movies and commercials and music videos across the world for the last 30 plus years.
Any sexy singer artists that we might know? Like have you ever worked with a Rihanna? Have you ever done a video for her or something?
No, better than Rihanna. Yeah. I did Gwen Stefani.
You did Gwen?
Oh, yeah. I produced the Cool video up in Lake Como. Yeah.
Wow. That's huge, man. We like to celebrity name drop once in a while.
Gwen is married to one of my oldest mates, Gav.
Gavin Rosedale. Yeah.
I was one of his best men at his wedding. And
get out of here.
One of my oldest mates, Gav.
He is the best looking man on the planet.
After me,
you're pretty good looking too.
Yes,
you're not a bad looking guy. Okay,
but I don't want to say any dirt about Gav. Gwen, I can go dirty on, but no. No, lovely couple, great friends, and we always try to coordinate which towns we're in for whenever they're on tour. So they're great. They're fantastic. Nothing there.
Well, let me get back to Irwin and Fran for a second. You can't just drop that nugget on us and me not inquire a little further. How do you meet Gavin Rosedale? What's the connection there? Is that in London, I would imagine?
London, without giving our ages away, over 30 years ago. I used to do the door at a lot of clubs, warehouse parties, and a lot of illegal stuff. And when Gavin started off in a band called, I can't even remember the name. Well before Bush. Well before Bush.
I'm sure he would have known Bush.
Well, there were two groups growing up.
He was in his wedding party, Anna.
There were two groups growing. Okay, back to the. I don't know.
Yeah,
I was just saying. No, there were two groups at the same time coming out at the same time, which was Curiosity Killed the Cat. I don't know if you remember those guys, and Gavin with his band called Midnight. That's what they were called.
Okay.
And I used to do the door at all their private, because the big thing in London at the time was to do private clubs, private parties, and I did the door of them. So we've known each other since, yeah.
There's so much more to you than just this movie. It's so neat to learn about you.
But let me get back to Irwin.
Please do. No, we'll plug the movie. Yeah, no, I'm happy. So this couple's like, you come film us. It's great. We look forward to it.
Well, what I wanted to do, because professionally speaking, I've done all these films and I've worked with a lot of different people along the way, with a lot of big names and small names and big movies and small movies. This was like the first feature-length attempt that I wanted to do for myself, basically. And getting into it, I didn't realize the length of time it would take. But I also realized by making documentaries, things happen along the way that you can't just rush things. You can't just rush a film. You have to, unlike a traditional film where there's a script, there's a budget, there's, you know, timing, schedule.
You adapt on the fly and you make it work for the end result of the film.
Exactly. So after I started shooting the film, I returned to Italy to start editing it. And at a certain point, my mother actually suggested, why don't I get in touch with Susan Sarandon to make her aware of the project and maybe to help out in some way. So I said, oh, that's a great idea, because I'd worked on a couple of movies with Susan years ago, and she's an old friend of Irwin and Fran's and used to live in their house while she was having her house fixed up in New York years ago. A lot of different stories involved. So I thought, oh, that's a really good idea. So I contacted Susan through her agent, asking her, oh, would you like to narrate the film? And she got back in literally minutes saying, yeah, of course I would. And I thought, shit, I don't have a script. So I had to...
I have a budget or a script.
So I rushed back to New York, sat down with Irwin and the rest of the family. He came up with a script. And a few months later, I was able to get Susan in the studio and recorded it. And then, you know, this couldn't have happened if I rushed the film. So there was one of the big lessons I learned, was don't rush the film. But you have the ability to do that when you take on a documentary story, a subject. And Dick Gregory, I don't know if you guys remember Dick Gregory. He's very old as well, but he's the first black comedian who actually crossed the colored line, and back in 1960 or something. And he's in the film too. He's been a political activist based in D.C. for the last 20 years. He gets arrested every week for something. But he's an amazing guy, and his connection with the film is very simple. I was introduced to him at the Friars Club one night with Irwin, and they both shared the same agent, another 90-year-old guy, Alta Caca, we called them.
Yeah, sure.
And he said, why don't you get Dick for the movie? And I said, absolutely. And the story between Dick and Irwin, which is fantastic, back in 1959 or 1960, Irwin was performing at the Chicago Playboy Club for a whole week. And they wanted him to work on the Sunday, which happened to be the 7th night. And Irwin said, no, I can't do it for whatever reason. And Hefner, at the time, who was being very, apart from being a pornographer, he also published writers that weren't being published. He also was pushing the envelope in so many different other areas. Had known Dick Gregory because he was the leading black comic in Chicago at the time, said, let's hire Dick Gregory. And in the film, it's all in the movie, Dick basically explains, he said, you know, for a black entertainer at the time, you could sing to white audiences, you could dance in front of white audiences, but you could never stand flat-footed and address white people. So when Irwin said he didn't want to work that Sunday night, Dick got his break and changed black entertainment forever.
Wow.
And so
before the Pryors would have done it, or the
he was the first.
Yeah,
he was
before
the first.
The Cosbys, or like
now a few years ago there was an amazing documentary made on Hefner, and he says the whole same story. I got Gregory saying the whole story and Irwin telling the story. So and the way Dick tells it is phenomenal. I mean, it really is. And he really is, for the last number of years, he's a very important person in black entertainment.
Oh, hey, sorry, I was just counting to one. My name's Roddy. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, because it's so much fun. You'll have a great time there.